Can Billy Napier get off the hot seat? The first football team that I previewed for the 2024 season was the Indiana Hoosiers, and they're a team that has a lot of excitement and hype right now because Curt Cignetti, it's his first year as the Hoosiers head coach, and it looks like Indiana football might be heading in the right direction. But a team that hasn't been heading in the right direction the past few years is the Florida Gators, and a lot of people thought when Billy Napier got hired to replace Dan Mullen that he was going to be able to translate the success he had at Louisiana Lafayette and go over to the Florida Gators and be able to recruit at a high level with better players. Even in a tough SEC, he was going to have a lot of success. But things have not been going too well for Billy Napier so far in his Florida tenure. And they actually beat Tennessee this past season as well, which was their best win of the year. Even though it was on their own field, it still was a good win against a rival. And with a win like that, you would feel like Florida should have been a bowl-eligible team. But they were not able to secure 6 wins, despite the SEC having 4 non-conference games. And now Billy Napier's heading into his 3rd season. And we know that in the modern day era in college football, and really in any sport, that your leash is not very long once your hot seat starts to get warm. We have seen coaches get fired quicker than ever before, so Billy Napier's going to have to turn things around quickly if he's going to be able to keep his job as the Florida Gators head coach. He's been recruiting at a high level, even better than Dan Mullen, but it hasn't translated to success just yet. And as you can see on screen, Billy Napier believes with a revamped staff that he's going to be able to lead Florida to a successful season this year because his belief is that better people will produce better players. And that could be true, but the problem is that Florida's got a tough schedule this year in 2024, and with Texas and Oklahoma joining an already tough SEC, some teams got to lose. And right now, according to the betting odds, it looks like Florida's going to be one of those teams because the over-under for Florida this year is only at 4.5, which is not good at all. I've actually seen a few betting odds that have had it down to 3.5, so nobody's thinking the Florida Gators are going to win, but I'm going to give my record prediction for Florida football in 2024 and whether I believe that Billy Napier will be able to keep his job after this season. Now, I asked people on Twitter, do you think Florida will fire Billy Napier this year? And 73% of people said yes. If I asked that for any other coach in college football, I'm sure that the percentage of yes votes would probably be less than Billy Napier. Billy Napier has the hottest seat of any coach in college football right now. And it's not exactly his fault because of the fact that when he took over the Florida Gators, things were not going all that well under the Dan Mullen era toward the end. And he was coming off a very successful run at Louisiana Lafayette where he went 40-12 and 27-5 in conference play. He took the Florida job. You can't blame him for wanting to take a bigger job. Some people, I do think it would have been better for them to stay at their smaller school, but still, get paid more, and if you have success, maybe you can even get an NFL job one day. But Billy Napier took over a tough situation, and no one was really upset after that first season where they went 6-7. Anthony Richardson was a sporadic quarterback. He was up and down. But then this past season, they had Graham Mertz at quarterback coming over from Wisconsin, and a lot of Florida fans were not happy about that because they're like, Graham Mertz was not very good at Wisconsin. He was a guy that's underperformed his recruiting ranking out of high school. He's been kind of mid throughout his entire career. It's actually had a terrible touchdown to interception ratio, but ironically, Graham Mertz did a lot better this past season with the Florida Gators with his touchdown to interception ratio. He threw 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and he was 5-5 as the starting quarterback for Florida, and he had a 73% completion percentage. But the problem for Florida was he didn't really throw the ball downfield at all. He was very conservative all season with his passing, which is why he didn't throw a lot of picks. And since he's not a really mobile quarterback, it was a lot easier for him to get sacked this past season, which made him get banged up in a couple games. So that's not too good for the Florida Gators, with possibly him lasting the entire season this year. And I do believe that Florida's offense is going to have to get more dynamic. They're going to have a better offensive line and more of a run game, which Florida used to have in the past. They're not running the football as well recently, and that's putting more pressure on their offense to throw the ball. And Graham Mertz just isn't the most dynamic quarterback in the world. But when you look at Florida's roster, they have some talent talented guys on their roster. Like I've said, Florida's been recruiting very well. Their 2024 recruiting class is ranked 7th overall, and they have 2 5-star players, including quarterback DJ Lagway, which a lot of people think could be the quarterback of the future for the Florida Gators. But Billy Napier's got to find a way to keep his job, or it's not going to matter with all these good recruiting classes and having DJ Lagway, because he'll be out of the picture. Billy Napier will be fired, and then DJ Lagway might transfer, or maybe the new coach will be able to keep him and then have success with him in the future. We'll have to see. But Billy Napier just has to find a way to keep his job this year, make a bowl game, in my opinion, to keep his job, because this is the last year of Graham Mertz. And I know some Florida fans are going to say that they need to go with DJ Lagway as a freshman as their starting quarterback. But even Tennessee did not do that this past year with Joe Milton when they had Nico Iamaleava behind him as a true freshman. Tennessee didn't start him. It's not really smart to start quarterbacks as true freshmen, because when you throw them into the fire too early, it can wreck their confidence. We've seen rare instances where it's worked out, but I would not do it if I'm the Florida Gators. I would let DJ Lagway sit behind Graham Mertz. But still, it is what it is for Billy Napier. He has his back against the wall. And the main problem for Florida is their schedule is absolutely brutal. This is why Florida only has an over-under of 4.5. And also why they're being projected 13 out of 16 in the preseason power rankings for the SEC, which you can't blame people for ranking Florida that low with the amount of quality teams that are in the SEC next season. The teams that are at the bottom of the league are still going to be solid teams. Arkansas, Mississippi State could have competent teams, but they could go 3-9 or 4-8 with how many good teams that there are in the league. Somebody has to lose. Only Vanderbilt's probably going to be rough in 2024. But Florida starting the season with a key game on ABC in week 1 against the Miami Hurricanes, a big-time rival. If Florida can win that game and start their season off on the right track, I think that would be able to possibly help the Florida Gators be able to have a decent season at the very least. I feel like they're going to have to get this win if they're going to be able to make a bowl game, because it gets worse from here with the rest of their schedule. But Miami is a team that, even though Mario Cristobal has a lot of detractors because of a lot of poor play calling and decision-making as a head coach at Miami, and even when he was back at Oregon, the Hurricanes do have a lot of talent, and their program is in better shape right now than Florida. So that's going to be a tough game for the Gators. More likely, Florida will not win, but it's a game I do think the Gators have to have if Billy Napier is going to be able to save his job. Sanford's a must-win. I don't see him losing that game, but you never know with Florida. Texas A&M is another game that Florida will have a chance in, but still, the Aggies are a team that is having a new head coach with Mike Elko, and I think a lot of people are higher on Texas A&M now that he's the coach because of the fact of what he did at Duke. People believe that he's going to be able to go to Texas A&M and right the ship after the Jimbo Fisher era failed. So that's going to be a tough game on ABC as well, but more than likely probably a loss for Florida. Then you got Mississippi State and UCF. Both those games are winnable. Florida has to win both these games, but the Mississippi State game's on the road. UCF's at home, but even so, the Knights are not a bad team. I think that Gus Malzahn will be able to have his team to have a shot in this game to be able to knock off Florida. But if Florida's going to be able to make a bowl game, they have to win both those games. At Tennessee is not an easy game at all, most likely a loss. Kentucky at home is winnable, and Florida has had a lot of close games with Kentucky recently. Some have gone in their favor, some haven't. So that's kind of a swing game. Georgia is a loss. Yes, it's a rivalry game and anything can happen, but Georgia could be the best team in college football next season, or at least a top 4 team at the very least. Going to be a very tough game for Florida to win. At Texas, the same way. Texas probably a top 5 team in 2024 during this college football season. I don't know if you can find a worse 5-game stretch, because after Georgia, Texas, you got LSU that's probably going to be a top 10 team. Ole Miss is going to be a top 10 team. And then they got at Florida State, which probably will be a top 25 team to end the year on the road. Florida's probably going to lose all 5 of these games. Maybe they win one somehow. They get lucky and win one with the amount of talent Florida will have on their team. But still, Graham Mertz, not a really dynamic quarterback. I only really see Florida winning any of these games if DJ Lagway gets inserted into the lineup and somehow he ends up having a lot of success right off the bat. But that is just a brutal stretch for Florida. I don't see them really winning any of these games. And all I know for Billy Napier is he's going to have to take Tom Petty's words to heart with one of his most famous songs that they play between the 3rd and 4th quarters of every Florida game. I won't back down. That's got to be Florida's mantra for 2024. No matter what, no matter how tough it seems, and no matter how much the backs are against the wall for the Gators, they just cannot back down and hope that they will be able to find some wins here and there. I really don't think think Florida's going to be winning a lot of games in 2024. It is what it is. They just have too brutal of a schedule. When you look at their roster, I mean, they got a lot of talent, as I said before. Montrell Johnson's a good running back. He's not as good of a running back, though, as Trevor Etienne, who Florida did lose in the transfer portal. That was a tough loss for the Gators, but still Montrell Johnson's solid. Graham Mertz is what he is. Chamari Dyke, he's a transfer receiver from Wisconsin, so he's going to be pairing up with Graham Mertz. He's a solid receiver. Their offensive line's mixed. Some guys are talented, but all those great defensive lines in the SEC are going to make it tough. And they did bring in some transfers on the defensive side of the ball as well. It's not like their team's that bad. I feel like if they were in the Big 12, Florida would be a bowl team. Billy Napier, I feel, is a good enough coach that they would be able to win like 7 or 8 games in the Big 12 or the ACC. But with this SEC schedule, there's just no way that the Florida Gators are winning a lot of games. My prediction for Florida in 2024 is that they're going to probably win 4 games. I think that the betting odds are about right. I want to say that they're going to win 5 games like last year. I don't feel like Billy Napier's a bad coach, but he's just in such a tough situation, and the backs are against the wall for the Gators. They just got so many tough teams on their schedule, and they just don't have enough talent. A lot of their best players are younger guys that it's going to take time for them to develop, and unfortunately, Billy Napier's probably not still going to be the head coach by the time some of these younger guys start to peak in their college football careers. I do think there's a great chance Billy Napier is fired in the 2024 season. I hope I'm wrong. I would like to see Billy Napier be able to turn this around, but this schedule is just way too hard, and they just don't have a good enough team. And even with the new coaching staff, I don't know what they're going to really be able to do to help the Florida Gators have a lot of success in 2024. My ceiling and floor for Florida is I think they could go 6-6 somehow with this schedule, and the floor is probably 2-10. I really don't see them going 2-10. I do think they'll win a couple more games than that, but my final prediction for Florida in 2024 is 4-8, and probably Billy Napier getting fired by the end of the season. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Whether you think that Florida has any chance to have a good season with this impossible schedule, and that Billy Napier will be able to save his job and be able to survive long enough for his talented recruiting classes to be able to enter their prime during their college careers and turn the Florida Gators around, or whether you think that Florida's going to have an awful season in 2024 and Billy Napier's going to get fired. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.